Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, William Liu, joined by Blake Murphy, producer.
Blake Murphy.
What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Just trying to find that clip of Pascal cursing,
Yeah.
saying swears.
Yeah, interesting stuff at practice. So I literally just come from practice before the show here. And because, listen, this is high time right now for trade rumors. So you just want to be around the team as much as possible, see what you can see. And whatever, there was nothing actually that particularly notable from Nick's interview or from Pascal's interview or Scotty's interview. Although there was one answer from Scotty that I thought was kind of cool. But there was obviously this little bit of tidbit that was shared by Michael Grange. And Grange worded as such that Pascal Siakam's comments on the approach and trade deadline are below, quote, "I don't know what's going on. However, a few minutes after Siakam spoke to media at practice, Raptors president Masai Ujiri motioned for Siakam to join him in an office adjacent to the practice floor." I'm pretty sure that's Masai's office. So this obviously got picked up, and obviously without the context of everything because of the fact that, this is that time of year, right? And Pascal's name is...
I need more context on how Masai called him over. Like, was it like, yo, Pascal? Or was it like comes over the speaker at OVO? It's like, could Pascal Siakam please come to Masai? And then the rest of the team's like, eee.
That's probably how people think this went down. But so what happened was Pascal was first to speak in the media scrum, gave his answers. Obviously he was asked a lot about trade deadline and stuff. And then he walked towards that direction already, because Masai's office is on the left. And Masai was just like, yo, come in. They literally sat down. And of course, we all saw it. We were like, oh, this is interesting, right? That's why you go to practice, to see some of this kind of stuff. And whatever, none of us are privy to what happened in that conversation. But that thing was 5 minutes. And afterwards, he was like laughing and making jokes afterwards. Yeah. Like, we don't need to make this into the whole thing where NBA Central goes, today after practice, Masai Ujiri motioned for Pascal Siakam to join him in his office with the little monocle emoji per Michael Grange. Like, this is not that.
The monocle emoji, do they think that like a monocle is like a one-eyed like super telescope or magnifying glass or something? Like, the monocle is just like rich people stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, I think historically it's to like look at a diamond or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
I don't think the monocle emoji is appropriate there.
I agree.
That's my number one issue with poor aggregation. We got that. We got Aaron Rose crediting bad trade ideas from all your trade ideas are bad column to me and not to the people who sent them in.
Okay.
We got, all the usual aggregation stuff this time of year. But, yeah, no monocle emoji. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, that's. I just wanted to put that out there at the start of it because it is kind of funny. That's all.
Yeah, there could be a lot of things going on here, right? Like Masai could have been like, "Hey, man, you're a Brooklyn Net now," and Pascal was laughing to hide the pain. Masai could have given him the "you're better than Drummond."
In this case, you're better than Ben Simmons.
You're better than Ben Simmons and infinite draft picks.
We're not doing.
It also could have been like them laughing a little bit at like, hey, I wanted to check in. There's all this stuff out there. Sure. Most of it's silly. And then, or it could have just been like nothing.
No, I mean, yeah. I got to tell you, it was 5 minutes, and the guy was laughing and chilling afterwards. So,
what team?
Make of that what you will, I guess.
Yeah. What soccer team does Pascal root for?
He's a Real Madrid fan.
Okay. Anything going on with them? Maybe Masai was giving him the gears about Real.
Maybe. I mean, I suppose Barcelona's ahead of them in the table right now. I mean, I still think Real's a better team, but yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, I think Pascal might have said he's a Chelsea fan as well, maybe less so.
He's rocking two teams. All right.
I don't know. I think Masai's a United fan.
Yeah, that much we know.
Yeah.
Sure. You're Liverpool, right?
Let's not talk about Liverpool this season. They're actually a little bit more depressing than the Raptors at the moment, which is hard to say.
I thought Tottenham was supposed to be the Toronto sports team of
There were Gerald slipped and Denver Barr's in here.
How do you have this on air?
Punishes of all people, Steven Gerrard. It's a terrific
It's the
moment
full
for Chelsea,
clip.
but an awful one for the
It's
Liverpool
the
skipper.
full clip. All right.
Anyway, with the Pascal thing, I would say
By the way, Toronto is not Tottenham. Just to be clear, Toronto has won a championship.
Yes, I believe I heard those comparisons pre championship.
Fair.
Anyway, the Pascal Masai thing
Yeah.
is probably nothing. And then I think if it is anything, it's just like a sign that the communication is open between them and they're making sure that nothing is left for, Pascal to hear through the rumor mill. I think those meetings are probably healthy and helpful this time of year.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I really don't see a move being made there. And definitely not for what Brooklyn had to offer there.
Maybe they're just looking at Ben Simmons' game logs, his points.
Damn.
Scoring game by game.
I mean, yeah, I'd be smiling laughing after seeing that too. But anyway, look, listen, this is a topic because yesterday the trade call was made where, the league office was open and it was Dallas Mavericks and Brooklyn Nets making that call to the front office or to the league office, officially making the trade of Kyrie Irving for, I guess, Kyrie and Markieff Morris for Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and some picks, right? Now, before the trade was actually made official, there seemed to be a flurry of activity involving the Toronto Raptors, where it's unclear because I think from the Toronto perspective, it felt very much like Brooklyn was trying to get some Toronto players involved. From the Toronto perspective, maybe you just see what's there. Of course, you make all these calls at the moment, but there was a lot of reporting around 4 p.m. yesterday about the fact that Toronto potentially could be roped into a three-way deal there with the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, that didn't actually happen because that trade just went through as a two-team deal. But Mark Stein reported on the trade market that, quote, based on my reporting, I don't think Masai Ujiri wants to seriously entertain a Siakam or Anunoby trade, but a lot of people around the league still think there is time for things to change. And also from Stein, he did say that league sources say that Brooklyn has explored the feasibility of packaging Spencer Dinwiddie and draft capital to Toronto in an attempt to acquire Fred VanVleet. Of course, you've seen all these guys on the Raptors side listed in trade rumors, so this is not necessarily a surprise, but your reaction to at least Brooklyn's attempt to expand this to a three-way deal.
It made sense to me, first of all, because, the Raptors have a bunch of pieces that we have kicked around. Hey, could Brooklyn be interested in this? Could Dallas be interested in this? And if those two teams are making a deal, then you see what's there. The bigger thing is, and this is hard to explain, it's harder to explain verbally than with an article, but a lot of times trades can get complicated from a CBA standpoint, and it's often helpful to loop in a third team. That's why if you go on Basketball Reference and you scroll down to someone's transaction page, you'll often see a trade that was a 3 or 4 team deal that you have no recollection of it being a 3 or 4 team deal because some team ate a small salary and picked up a top 50 protected second or whatever just to play ball. That stuff happened. Even the Dwayne Dedmon deal today, which is basically a nothing burger, but
that's literally a nothing burger.
I mean, the Spurs pick up a pick to basically help the Heat get a little extra cushion underneath the tax, and the money is not significant relative to what the pick is. So you see stuff like that. And if you're a team like the Raptors that has assets and might be trying to restock draft capital, you want to see what you can get involved in. This is when we talk about off-season scenarios too, where teams have cap space to rent. This is what we're talking about. Hey, the money doesn't work here. This team doesn't want to take this back. There's a Russell Westbrook deal by Thursday and someone doesn't want to eat him. Well, the Spurs have all this cap space.
Yep.
Pay them to take that guy on with a draft pick or something like that. Anyway, the Raptors aren't quite in that position. It was more about the assets. The other element of it is once a player's traded, he could be traded again, but he can't have his salary aggregated with someone else for a little while. So the Nets now cannot turn around. They can trade Dorian Finney-Smith. They could trade Spencer Dinwiddie. They could trade all the other stuff they have on their team, but they can't pair salaries for Dorian Finney-Smith or Spencer Dinwiddie. Okay. So that makes making a subsequent trade a little bit more complicated. Less so when it comes to a VanVleet Dinwiddie scenario because those contracts match up.
Right.
So say it was Dinwiddie and picks for VanVleet, you can get there. And if the Raptors say, well, that's not enough for us, you could structure it as 2 separate deals and then be like, okay, give us whoever and take back Kem Birch, and that's a second deal technically. So Dinwiddie's salary isn't aggregated. Anyway, it just gets slightly more complicated to move Dinwiddie and Finney-Smith now that they've been acquired versus if it's a 3-teamer. So those are the main things. I think the takeaway if you're a Raptor fan though is that the point guard market is moving, and Kyrie on pure talent was the A1 guy who could possibly move. Fred VanVleet heads up the next tier, and then Spencer Dinwiddie is probably a tier or a half tier down. So if Brooklyn's not content with Dinwiddie, you have a chance to pick something up for VanVleet. You could see a scenario where another team wants Dinwiddie. We've already heard those rumors. So all the stuff around VanVleet, Trent, even Anunoby still makes sense because we were talking about that for the Nets even before we knew the Kyrie specifics. The Pascal stuff around it, though, is completely new. And I think partially the Nets feeling the pressure to make sure KD is happy with whatever the outcome of this deadline is. And obviously Siakam, if he were available, would be the best player available on the trade market. I've heard pretty much all along that the Raptors aren't really listening on that, on Siakam or Barnes. And then that softened a little bit once the Kyrie thing happened. I think it's just, kind of the way Mark Stein framed it is like, yeah, of course you're going to like listen and just see, like, what if a team offered you, I don't know, LeBron and Giannis in a 3-team deal? Like, of course you got to listen. But no, I don't think it's pretty likely, and certainly not likely in a like Simmons and picks for Siakam swap. Like that is like Ben Simmons is, even with only 2 more years left, probably the worst contract in basketball. You got to pay me to just take that on, let alone give up Pascal.
Yeah. I made some calls just to be sure about this as well, but yeah,
you got your reporter shirt on. You got your
no.
That's good, man.
That's not really what I do per se, but of course it's something that I think I'm trying to expand into personally. But it's like, just to confirm, like, that is not happening, right? Exactly what you're saying. Siakam, Barnes, not in the conversations, not at this trade deadline. Maybe in the offseason, if you really, really see it go south, you have to reevaluate everything. Who knows, right? But right now, no. We're talking about OG, we're talking about Gary, we're talking about Fred. And those are the 3 pieces.
And then, anything off the bench that isn't Precious, I'm sure they'd listen to.
I'm not surprised that Brooklyn will be interested in these pieces. Brooklyn needs to do whatever they can this trade deadline to make things work with KD, right? Because who knows, man. If that doesn't work out this offseason, do you think he would say no to asking for a trade again?
No, I think he probably would ask for a trade again.
Exactly. So,
like, if they're bounced in the first round,
yeah,
like the Nets have as much first round pressure as the Leafs do at this point.
Yeah.
So let me ask you.
So you can't make that move right now, but you would ask about some of the other pieces.
Yes.
Hence, you hear the conversation for Fred. Hence, you hear that they're interested in a guy like OG. To be honest, the Nets with an OG, if they somehow got their hands on OG, and I really don't see a way to make that happen, obviously that would really help Brooklyn. Brooklyn now has some really solid 2-way forwards, right? They obviously already had Royce O'Neal, who was a nice add in the offseason. He's also played a lot like point for them in a way, and I think he's really fit in culturally as well. I think the other aspect is you already have now Dorian Finney-Smith coming back. If you had an OG Anunoby as well, and you could put out, KD with that group and then Nick Claxton, that's a really, really hard team to score against. Now, of course,
I mean, it's like trying to score on the Raptors if you had Nick Claxton at center.
Yeah, but of course, every single team in the league will then just triple team Pascal and then force the other guys, or Pascal, KD in this case. I'm so used to saying teams are triple teaming Pascal. Teams will just triple team KD and force other guys in that group to beat you, and that's where you would really need some more scoring around that. However, that is a really valuable group. If you were looking at a deal to be made with Brooklyn in the next 3 days here, I mean, what would you be looking for, right? Because to be honest, I don't see anything with the Pascal thing being even of equivalent value.
Short of them putting the draft picks that they have and Nick Claxton on the table.
Yeah.
Which, like,
that's not going to happen, though, for them. I really don't think so.
I don't think so either. If I'm them, like, first of all, you already did this same thing and kind of botched it with how you handled Jared Allen. And, he would look really nice on that team. And then maybe you could be like, well, moving Jared Allen out kind of, I guess, allowed for the Karis LeVert, James Harden thing, and then Nick Claxton doesn't become Nick Claxton if Jared Allen's there. It's like, sure, but you did that for DeAndre Jordan, not for Nick Claxton.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I'm them, I'm not making that mistake again. I'm not making that mistake in the first place if I'm them. Claxton leads the league in field goal percentage and shot blocking. As far as low usage, low demand young centers who can anchor your defense and like don't need a lot of touches, like, he's a perfect fit for what they're doing. The one thing that we can't underestimate with the Nets, though, is like the KD pressure, the win now pressure. If they think a guy like Pascal pushes them to the title in a way that Claxton can't do yet, maybe. But I don't see any Siakam conversation that starts without at least Nick Claxton and some of that extra draft capital they have.
Yeah.
Everyone else further down on the Raptors, yeah, you can have a conversation. So the Nets, they do owe their 2024 and 2026 firsts out. They owe pick swaps in 2023 and 2025. So you're not looking at a pick from them until 2028, but they have a 2027 first from Philly that's only top 8 protected, and they have that now unprotected 2029 first from Dallas. Those are really interesting chips if you are blowing it up completely. If you are trying to do the more likely path, I think, of get some stuff and still be good again next year, you have to look at those picks more as trade chips than who's coming through the door in 2027, 2029.
Yeah. To be clear, 2029, you're probably not going to see a player actively contribute towards a rotation until probably 2030, 2031, 2032. Because we're talking about probably an 18, 19-year-old who's coming into the league at 2029. They're probably not going to contribute until they're 21, 22, 23 years old. We're literally talking about trading for a decade from now. That's not even one rebuild.
Grade.
Yo, we're talking about literally trading for someone in the 7th grade.
So those picks
no,
are primarily it's you view them as trade chips to turn around and do something else with, which can be helpful. And then from a player perspective, you know, if you wanted to talk yourself into Joe Harris for one more year and Gary Trent was outbound and you just, you know, you kind of just tack on one extra year to a similar player type. They're not similar player types, but a 3-point shooter or whatever. Sure. But really the only guy you're super excited about from a player standpoint who's potentially available is Cam Thomas. Now
Back-to-back 40 balls.
Yeah. Right after he must have saw the API of like the trade machine who's getting put in trade machines the most and got mad or something. Yeah, ain't stuff funny. Anyway, he is not 91 points over 2 games good, but he's a really interesting scoring guard prospect who has like pretty nice shot mechanics. He's a tough shot maker, which you know, you project ahead to what things could look like as he finds ways to get easier shots for himself. You like what could happen there. He's already probably a step ahead as a playmaker from where, say, Gary Trent is at this point. There's a lot to like there. He can't be the anchor of a deal, I don't think. But he'd certainly be an interesting piece to get back if you really don't value those picks.
Yeah.
And you get 2 more years of him before you have to make any kind of decision on him.
No, I mean, I think the name that intrigues me, I mean, look, obviously, everyone's seen what Cam has done the last 2 games. It's great, right? The name that would intrigue me the most is the name that had intrigued the Raptors last year and probably still does, but he's just probably not movable right now, is Nick Claxton, who obviously has made this huge jump, looks awesome, blocks 3 shots a game, offensive rebounding, catching lobs. He had a play last night where he went coast to coast and took it in with a dunk, and it was just spectacular to see a big do that. I know, you know, especially Nick and Masai, the type of players they covet. That's probably exactly it.
Sorry, can I ask you a question?
Sure, yeah.
How many shots do you think this year he has taken outside of 10 feet?
Nick Claxton? I'm going to say, man, he plays all the time, so probably 30?
7.
7. Wow.
He's missed 2 corner threes and then he's 1 for 5 from like 10 feet to the 3-point line. You can do that when you shoot 83% at the rim.
Yeah. That sounds about right. I mean, obviously it's layups and dunks, but as we know, it's not that simple for everyone to finish around the basket like that.
Like
he's made such a big jump.
You lead the league in field goal percentage. He's now you would have to say the Raptors got him. Like that's a guy you want to use a lot more as a roll man and pick and roll.
Sure,
like you can't get that many shots around the rim just on offensive rebounds, although he does get almost 3 of those a game too.
Yep.
You want to run a little bit more pick and roll, but yeah, he's awesome. He's a guy that, man, you look back and try to wonder at what point in time there was a window to buy on him or something, if there ever was.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like the window was last summer, I would say, or last season, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he was an RFA. Yeah.
Well, apparently the report is that the Raptors offered that Goran Dragic and first-round pick package that they ultimately landed Thad with, right? Obviously, it's a long cry from Nick Claxton to Thad Young, with all due respect to Thad, who was putting in extra time, knocking down corner threes like nobody's business in practice or whatever. But, like, that would have been the time to buy in on Nick Claxton before he bought in, before he broke out. And
I wonder what...
that would be interesting if you were able to make that happen at that time.
I wonder what bad salary the Raptors would have eaten back in that scenario. I guess maybe Joe Harris, because he was out at that point. Yeah. So you take back Joe Harris's deal and get I mean, yeah,
Yo,
that
if you
seems
had
like a
gotten
bad deal
Joe
for
Harris
Brooklyn.
and Nick Claxton for Goran in a first.
Yeah, that's
But,
wild.
I mean, in
But hey,
retrospect,
that could be Walker Kessler, it could be Malachi Branham.
yeah. That's true. Yeah. So anyway, I thought this interest from Brooklyn was probably more one sided. I think probably Masai probably was like, "Oh, are you guys willing to talk KD?" You know, because that would be kind of funny. But listen, I didn't think that there would be something to be made there. I wouldn't mind Dinwiddie as like a third guard, maybe
Yeah.
even a starting guard. I suppose if you move somebody else around.
He's also only his contract's only partially guaranteed for next year, which means that
Sure.
say you got Dinwiddie back in a Fred scenario and you decided you didn't want Dinwiddie long term or whatever, that's going to be like a guy who's good and makes 20 million, maybe not a $20 million player, but not far off, and only has half of that guaranteed. Like, that's a really tradable contract in the offseason too.
Yeah. But yeah, he would be a great third guard. But again, I don't think Brooklyn is looking to shed. I think they're looking to add as much as possible, right? Because their window is literally right here, right now.
Like, you're only talking Dinwiddie if VanVleet's going back. You're only talking, I don't know,
Would you
Cam
do that?
Thomas if it depends on the picks coming back. Like
If they give you, I guess that Dallas that seventh grader pick, which is what I'm calling it from now on.
Yeah,
If they're giving that seventh grader and they're giving you, I don't know, one other first round pick to swap up from
would
Spencer to Fred?
they change out one of those first round picks for Cam Thomas?
No,
then
they're
I'd do
keeping
it.
Cam Thomas.
Yeah.
They need guard scoring right now.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I'd probably still ask for like Big Kessler Edwards coming back, just as
I'm
like
sure
a
you can have Big Kess.
end of bench flyer kind of thing.
No problem. In fact,
but
they'll toss in a free Big Kessler.
If you could turn an expiring Fred into one extra year of Dinwiddie with trade flexibility and pick up two pretty valuable firsts, I think you probably have to do that under the caveat that like potential extension talks have not gone super well with Fred. Like, Fred's better than Dinwiddie, but if he's going to leave or there's a risk of him leaving, picking up two firsts and getting a comparable downgrade is fine.
Do you think Brooklyn does that?
No.
Okay.
I think they're probably, if they're going to put those two firsts back on the table, I think they're probably swinging even bigger. Or they're
probably swinging for Pascal or maybe even OG.
Or they ask you to, hey, here's the framework for Fred. Would you eat Joe Harris and throw Gary Trent in there to get us across the finish line here?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
And then who knows?
It does make the Raptors older. I mean, of course, you get picks.
Right,
but
because
you are making them older.
it's not about Dinwiddie and Joe Harris helping this team. It's about Dinwiddie and Joe Harris, playing out the year, and then you shop them in the offseason or next trade deadline as pretty good sized expirings, right? Like, we can see right now what those could bring you back. Although it does seem a little bit like circular to trade expiring guys for picks and longer contracts and then turn around and trade those longer contracts that are now expiring with picks for players. Like what are you going to do?
Sure.
Turn around next year and be like, well, Joe Harris and Spencer Dinwiddie are expiring. I wonder if we could flip them for Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet with picks.
You're literally rolling the problem over.
Yeah, which is fine sometimes. I think the Raptors need to more decisively pick which direction they're headed in than that, but you could certainly justify it given how close they've at times seemed this year.
Fair.
And given Scotty's age and upside.
The other direction that they could go, and this is from Matt Moore of the Action Network. Shouts to HP Basketball, man. That's an OG blogger right there. But Matt Moore reports about Fred and Orlando. Multiple sources told Action Network there's real interest from the Magic in Raptors point guard Fred VanVleet. It's believed that Jalen Suggs could be part of a potential deal, but will require more from Toronto in compensation, given Suggs' defensive capabilities and rookie scale contract. As always with Toronto, there should be a word of caution, as trying to get a deal done with Toronto is like, quote, blood from a stone, as one executive described it, due to the front office's combination of savvy and leverage.
Yeah, although, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. Like, Bobby Marks was on the JD Bunkus podcast this morning and said something similar, but said like he's been in a front office that dealt with Masai, and at the end of the day, Masai is fair. It's just he's not gonna, he's gonna play as. Now I'm paraphrasing Bobby's point, but Bobby's exact wording was, at the end of the day, Masai's fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, blood from a stone, but I don't think he's going to. Like, I don't think every trade needs to be the Bargnani trade for the Raptors to do business. Like, it's not like that bad trade was a home run trade.
I'm considering that like a tax, a gratuity fee after the Kawhi trade.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, you know what? That service is so good. Here you go. Here's 2 more.
Yeah. Hey, remember that $5 million you guys kicked in?
Yeah. Here you go.
We would like to pay it back a little bit. By the way, you watched. I know this is off topic, but because of the pick downgrade from the first to the second, what do you think of Christian Koloko last night with the 905?
I don't think that was the right environment for him to develop because he literally never touched the ball. To be fair, he was not good and committed a lot of fouls and got worked by Luka Samanic, which was really tough to see. And I think he literally only had like 2 points on the night, maybe a little bit more.
He ended up finishing with a double-double.
He finished with a double-double?
Yeah,
Okay.
he packs them in late as they organizational synergy, as they did a fake comeback.
It's good that they're practicing fake comebacks too at the 905. No, but seriously though, it just didn't feel like he was very much involved. To be fair, he wasn't really doing that much with it, and they have a more skilled offensive option with Reggie Perry, who's there consistently. Reggie Perry, by the way, did not see him make a lot of passes. I mean, he had assists, but damn.
He's had some like borderline triple doubles this year.
Yeah. I don't know though. When you watch it, you're like, yeah, man. I mean, whatever. He has a chance to score. My point is though, I didn't really think that was a great situation for Christian to be. Defensively, obviously, was outside of guarding the post was pretty good, which we know he can do. But yeah, I mean, it felt like okay, if you want to get him down there, get him shooting more threes, get him involved in the offense a little bit more. And then, of course, I think for the challenge for him is Christian's got to learn how to play without fouling. Like the fact that you're in foul trouble in 905 as well, like that's part of the reason why I like him going down there sometimes is because I need you to learn how to play 30 minutes at this level or even at the lower level without fouling.
Right.
Like you can't even be in the game half the time.
It's also, I think, a good proxy for like how is he reading the game defensively, right? Like if you are getting, if you're putting up summer league stat lines of like 7 blocks and 8 fouls, you can't do that in the G League. You can do it in summer league though. Like, yeah, those don't really tell me anything other than you're taking a lot of gambles to block shots.
Yeah.
But if you can play without fouling and you're still having that same defensive impact, and I think you only had 1 block last night.
Yeah.
Now that's a pretty veteran team they were going against, like Tony Snell
Shouts to
on
Tony
that
Snell,
team, and
man.
Denzel Valentine.
Yeah, they had a couple of names.
Yeah.
Who was it? The Canadian that was burning us last
Oh,
night.
Mario Shayok.
Oh man, Mario Shayok was going nuts. He was knocking down. I think he probably had like 5-6 threes easily. Pascal was at the game too, by the way. It was great.
Yeah. They set a Guinness World Record for most people in one place wearing capes at the same time. In conjunction with which hospital? Sunnybrook. I should know this.
We'll double check this.
Yeah,
but,
sorry to the 905. I should.
No, it was a great thing, and of course Pascal is matching donations as well. I think up to 100K. So he's being once again really charitable with that. Actually, was asked about it at practice. He really talked about how just sort of getting away from the game and sort of like trying to help people was really kind of just like mentally refreshing for him. Because it's like obviously when you're in the game, you're worried about small things like, are you making the next basket, or are you making the right pass here, or even slightly bigger things like, what's your role in the team, the contract, all that kind of stuff. When you step away from it and you really put yourself in other people's positions, like I think Pascal really spoke very eloquently about just how much he really wants to help the community.
And Holland Bloorview was the hospital. It's Canada's leading pediatric rehab teaching hospital.
Right.
So you can learn more about them on hollandbloorview.ca. And then 905 posted a bunch of content from the night and the record as well.
Yeah.
So good for Pascal. Less so good for Koloko. Banton headed back down there now for tomorrow too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you were going somewhere else with this. Jalen Suggs.
Fred for Jalen Suggs.
Would you kick in more though?
Okay, where are we at with Jalen Suggs? I understand that. Look,
if they were willing to give you Jalen Suggs for Fred today, like absolutely, he's 21 years old. He was just a number 5 pick. He aligns perfectly with Scotty's timeline and skill set wise. Like if you turn Jalen Suggs into what we thought Jalen Suggs would be, he's dealt with a lot of injuries.
Okay.
I think that probably has at least something to do with how little traction he's gained offensively. You've seen some improvements in things like assist to turnover ratio. So maybe he's figuring it out a little bit more. But right now, I mean, the issue with him is he has not been able to shoot in the NBA, and that was like the skill that was supposed to be there.
he's shooting 24% from 3 in his career. So
Yeah.
far. I mean, that was only like 2 seasons right now.
It's still 300 attempts. Like it's not a death knell number, but it's not.
And I get it. Like, obviously, there's probably, as a point guard, it has to do. You probably have to, like, pull up for threes or create threes, take end of the clock threes. Yeah. It's not the same as a guy catching and shooting in the corner. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, all right, so there's that aspect of it. Defensively, I like him, right? There's clearly, like, a defensive capability there. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Is it a slam? So it's a slam dunk for you that you would do this trade?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
Toronto?
like
Okay.
the rookie scale deal is not super cheap for a number 5 pick, but like his next 2 years are total 16.3 million. That's like that's cheaper than Chris Boucher. That's like what you were paying, Kem this year plus a little bit. Like that's not a prohibitive contract, and then you'd have RFA rights on him if things work out. And yeah, look, that's a commitment to building around the Scotty timeline for sure, because then you have two guys that you're building around. I think it makes you worse for the rest of this year. So you lottery wise, maybe you're a little better off. I just think, like it's effectively the Tampa tank then got you 2 high lottery picks for Fred. I don't know. That's a poor way of framing it, but I just think if you are even considering hey, let's look at things on Scotty's timeline instead of the right now timeline, getting the guy you were choosing who to draft between with him is not only funny, but like there's a reason every draft person thought Jalen Suggs was like if not the upside guy in the top 5, like this guy's going to be an NBA player guy. I don't think that has I don't think this year and a half of like he hasn't even played a full year of basketball because of the injuries and stuff.
Okay.
I don't think it's turned you off of it enough to think that he's not a big asset. Now, the note from Matt Moore that you'd have to kick back more in.
Yeah.
Like I'm not throwing in unprotected firsts to get that done or anything.
Well, I think from Orlando's perspective, can't they just say like, well, we don't have to do anything to get Fred. We can just sign him off outright in the offseason.
Yeah. Orlando would be a really tough team to negotiate with because they have like nothing on the books for next year. Like Isaac's deal is only half guaranteed. Fultz's deal is only guaranteed for $2 million. Gary Harris's deal is fully not guaranteed. Mo Bamba's deal is fully not guaranteed. So you're talking about like they got Paolo and Wendell Carter and Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner on the books. Like that's it. So why would you if you're them?
No, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. For me, maybe it's just because of what happened last season, and obviously there was such a big point of debate, obviously at the 4th pick, right? Because 1, 2, 3 was going to be what they were going to be. Houston was locked into Jalen Green. Evan Mobley was never going to slip past Cleveland at 3. And Cade Cunningham seemed like the prohibitive number 1 overall pick. So the real debate was who at that time would you were going to pick between Scotty or Suggs. And I think that led to a whole season-long conversation between Raptor fans and Magic fans about who's better. And obviously last year, there was no doubt Scotty was way better.
And this year, there's been no doubt.
This year, there's also no doubt. There's that he's way better. So
now the conversation is like, is Franz Wagner the guy we should be having that conversation about?
Right. And Franz is having a really, really good year. I really enjoy watching him. Right. And so Orlando's probably happy with that draft just because they got Franz. So I don't know if that conversation is informing my view of Suggs right now, but I'm leery of this type of player at this point. And whatever, at the time of the draft, when you were hearing from the draft experts, because obviously I don't watch college basketball, it sounded really good. But when I'm looking at it now, I'm like, the archetype of this style of player, there's a real chance that it could be something much lower than what his potential was said to be, which is the case for everybody. But would it surprise you if 5 years from now he had like an Elfrid Payton type of trajectory?
Not entirely. I still maintain. So part of the reason that there was optimism in his shooting, despite only shooting 34% in college, is that he was a tough shot maker, right? Similar to what we just said with Cam Thomas, like if you can make the difficult ones and you have to self-create a ton and you're okay efficiency on those, logically, once you're in an NBA offense and the defense is harder, but the shot diet might get a little easier. Like we should be able to project that forward a little bit. So I still think I'd maintain a little bit of optimism there. And then the fact that he's a good defender already, I think just solidifies like a little bit higher of a floor. Like, offensively, I don't know, I guess.
But how many guards in the league succeed without shooting?
Yeah, like I guess Dennis Smith Jr. and Frankie Smokes are like around still.
I'm just saying,
but not often.
Those are like within the range of possibilities. I'm not saying that's what Jalen Suggs is going to turn into be. Because really, I don't want to be that down on a 21-year-old. But like at the same time, it's like, I need to see some of that potential, especially from a smaller guard, because he's not really going to play anything other than point. He's not going to play shooting guard without a shot, and there's just not a lot of guys out there. Like I would look for something. I would definitely look for shooting in return if I'm moving Fred. Right. I just don't want to see the Raptors going forward after this trade deadline or next season without shooting the roster. It's already so painful.
So let's throw a comparison out there, and this is not a good comparison because on value, like Suggs was the number 5 pick and he does more and stuff like that. But let's say that Dallas deal had been expanded. Tim Cato, the Athletic, reported that Josh Green wasn't on the table. But what about a guy like Josh Green, who small number of shots and largely assisted threes from the corner, but at 36% for his career and 42% this year, and same type of size and perimeter defense as Suggs, but you don't get the playmaking, and who knows if that shooting can scale if the ball has to be in his hands a little bit. Like, is that a type of guy that is more attractive to you with a Scotty Pascal core than a traditional league guard?
Still less so.
He's
by the
maybe
way,
there's got to be someone in between, but
yeah. I mean, again, even for him, like I watch it. I watch, the Mavs are on all the time.
Yeah.
So you end up watching the Mavs. And it's hard to tell because everybody who's not named Luka on the Mavs is just standing around waiting for kick out threes or like getting an offensive rebound like Dwight Powell. So like obviously everyone's role is so specific. But yeah, when I watch him, I'm like, okay, for a guard, very athletic, willing to play very physical as well. And I like that aspect. Although I do worry that there's going to be some injury concerns just with that style of play. But yeah, I don't really see anything that he does at a plus level offensively. The Raptors already, I mean, this season, obviously, their offensive rating is actually decent.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
But clearly, they're not a team that is flush with offense. And if you take away Fred, which I'm okay with that idea right now, but if you take away Fred and you don't add offense, this team is going to be one of the worst offenses in the league, period.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned with that. You replace what Fred is doing right now for you with Jalen Suggs, you will be the worst offense in the league.
Yeah, and some of it is...
That's my concern.
Yeah, and I mean the half court offense is already like close to that, right? And it's trended upward, but
sure. I mean, it's trended upwards right now recently because they're calling Fred's number all the time.
And Fred and Scotty are just like running a lot more pick and roll that suits like this is a team that I know that this sounds weird because every NBA game looks like there's a ton of pick and roll, but like the Raptors over the last 2-3 years have run less pick and roll than just about everyone. So now, shooting isn't the only way to space, like being able to put pressure on the rim and stuff like that, whether it's with a rim runner or an attacker. But yeah, it's
How
hard.
much pressure you put on the rim if
there's no space? Well, what was the play the other night? I think it was Fred and Koloko ran a pick and roll, and Boucher and Achua, I might be mixing up who it was, but 2 other big guys cut to the paint at the exact same time. So Fred's trying to score out of a pick and roll with 3 like 6'9" guys in the paint because like everyone wasn't on the same page and the defense can collapse and stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, listen, that look, I mean, man, trading. I just want more offense back. I think really with this group.
Yeah.
So like I'd rather have Cam Thomas than Jalen Suggs.
It's a funny thing to be saying because entering the year we all would have been like, yeah, of course they're going to need offense at the deadline, and it feels that way still. And then you look at the numbers, it's like, well, they're a disaster defensively.
Yeah, well, that's more pie-in, I think. I think they should, by the way, be a way better defensive space on the personnel. But listen,
yes, they should. It's the same personnel as last year.
Yeah, I know. And last year at this time of the year, they really turned it around. It was great. So far this year, not so much. We're going to take a break right here. I've been your host, Willow. That's Blake Murphy, and you're listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, William Lou. Continue to be joined by Blake Murphy, who, once again, as he does every Tuesday, working OT. What's coming up on your show today, buddy?
That's a good question.
Oh, okay, all right.
No, we got so Timmy Bontemps will be on.
Oh, Timmy,
and
good
then
times.
we've got some football stuff because media day for the Super Bowl was yesterday. So we got Peter
Right.
King, like the
wow.
goat of football writing,
Damn.
on. And then I don't know. We'll kick around some of the same stuff.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. Tuesdays in this last month where you and I like just haven't talked ball.
Yeah.
It's just trade stuff. Like by the time my show rolls around and we get through the Raptors, the rumor stuff, it's it's been a bit. I'm excited for us to be able to talk defensive coverages and pick and roll and stuff soon.
Well, I mean, we could do that, but we're not gonna because this is gonna be more trade deadline stuff. Until the deadline passes, this is all that there's gonna be. I don't like it personally because I really enjoyed the sport of basketball for the sport, but evidently this is exactly what we need right now. You wrote a column up on Sportsnet.ca, and this is a column that you've done over the years. But the headline is NBA Trade Deadline 2023: What offers the Raptors should and shouldn't consider. So
I mean, it's the Sportsnet way of naming all your trade ideas are bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it was called in the past.
Back in Raptors Republic days.
You, as always, canvassed a lot of reporters and writers and people elsewhere for these trade ideas. To be clear, these are not Blake Murphy's trade ideas, okay? Blake would not make probably 95% of these trades.
Yeah.
Or if he would, it's probably not realistic from the Raptors perspective.
So
okay?
the idea is cast a huge net for trade ideas and then kind of sort them into groups and then pick out the ones that are at least most interesting to talk about from like, hey, what might the other team be thinking? What might the Raptors be thinking? What do we all need to keep in mind this time of year? It's not as mean as the name suggests. But yeah, like there's a reason just in case that the only names I actually put on them are ones from colleagues.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to just be mean to like a random person on Twitter who spent their time sending me a trade machine screenshot.
No, dunk on everybody, man. Come on. Okay, look, we can go through the column. Obviously, we can't go through all of them. Luckily, you've grouped them together, right? Because of the fact. What are you looking on Twitter?
Oh, just Woj had in the aftermath of the Irving trade, Nets and Durant are having ongoing conversations. Thus far, the organization has told inquiring teams they're not planning to trade Durant.
Yeah, they're not. At
least by
right
Thursday.
I doubt if they're doing that by now.
Actually,
in the offseason, definitely.
Before we do this is a question I have for you. So,
sure, yeah.
Do you think the possibility of trading for Durant in the offseason makes some teams who would otherwise maybe want to buy from the Raptors more hesitant to deal with assets?
Sure.
Like I think of the Suns specifically, right? Like if you move off of Ayton or the firsts that you have or whatever, you can't turn around and use those for KD. You think this hurts the Raptors market for some teams?
I think it definitely hurts the Raptors market for some teams. But at the same time, I also wonder, because of right now, I think this season, in particular on this trade deadline, is very unique because the league is really, really open, right? And by the time the offseason rolls around, if KD changes teams, that's going to make this thing much more top-heavy. Right now, the NBA is in a very unnatural state of parity. Normally, NBA basketball, especially like the last 2 decades of it, has been dominated by the fact that there are teams out there like the Big Three Celtics, like the Miami Heat with the Big Three there, like the Warriors, like the Cavs, who have these super teams going at all times, and those are the teams that are ultimately going to win. Right now, the league's in a very even space, so this is a time for a lot of teams to jump in. So I think that opportunity is not lost on a lot of these teams, and they're still going to want to make a trade for this deadline for this upcoming playoff run as compared to the offseason. But, of course, I do think a team like Phoenix, I think that specific example, they would be smart to hold.
Yeah. Portland was the other one I thought of if they tried to do the Dame KD link up or whatever. But
who else is going to be there? It's going to be Dame KD and Trent Watford. Like, we're watching Watford on the television right now, man.
No, it's Wrexham.
Yeah. Well, basically,
it was
the
a
same
good
level.
It was almost a good show.
Yeah, well, I do love that guy's name, but I don't think it'll depress it that much. But it's a good question, actually. I think V asked me the same thing at practice today, as we were watching, Masai and Pascal have a very normal human interaction. But anyway, to your trade column here.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, you've grouped it into specific players. So I just want to go through each player and sort of maybe for you the most realistic or maybe the most balanced trade that we've had. So the first group, you had OG Anunoby here. what was the most realistic group or most realistic fake proposal?
Yeah, so I did like yours. I spoke to a couple people, like a couple league people, about the Grizzlies and what they're looking to do, and they're a weird one because obviously they have all these interesting players and like down 3 guys. They almost beat the Raptors the other night, and every single one of their guys looks good, and they have a bunch of picks. They need half court offense though. They don't really. I don't know that. They go nuts for OG versus a different player type. So I settled on New Orleans. I think there's some fun stuff you can do with Denver around Bones Highland. And if you have the risk tolerance for Michael Porter Jr.'s contract, like most Nuggets writers seem to think Michael Porter Jr. is very available if the right trade math works. So, but no, New Orleans made sense for me. You have Devontae Graham coming back as the salary matching piece. He's not good. It's a bad contract, but it's not going to bankrupt you. And then what you're looking at, they have Daniels, Jones, Murphy, Lewis. Maybe you can ask for maybe 2 of those guys, but depending on what you want from the picks package, maybe you only ask for 1. But then they have 5 first-round picks available between now and 2025, as well as 3 pick swaps available between 2023 and 2026. So I'm not saying specific, like it's certainly not all that stuff, but if you were in a case where, hey, you could take 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here, and then 1 wild card asset, like I think those assets you could get back make sense for the Pelicans. Don't leave them too thin and give you a pretty good return if you have to trade OG.
Right. Out of those prospects from New Orleans, which one would you prioritize the most?
I think Dyson Daniels has the highest upside.
Okay.
I think Herb Jones is the likeliest to step into an OG type role for like next year if you want to be good again.
Right. Shouts to Herb Jones, by the way.
Yeah.
Another prospect that's low-key 24.
Yeah.
He's like, not quite the Terrence Mann, Cam Johnson of low-key 26.
Yeah. Cam Johnson, who's about to hit restricted free agency at 40.
Yeah.
It's like watching the 905 game yesterday. I know you were watching. Jeff Doughton Jr. is the best player on the floor. It's like, yeah, because he's as old as Tony Snell.
Yeah. Well, we're essentially trading for like rookie Jorge Garbajosa at this point. Okay. I agree with that. I agree with that assessment. Okay. Next grouping of trades focused on Gary Trent Jr., who obviously has also been in trade talks. What was the most realistic or feasible deal that was proposed to you there?
Yeah, this is a tough one because in talking to Knicks people, like the 3 first-round picks from the Knicks has kind of become. You remember HBAP from the Nets years, where it was like Humphreys, Brooks, and a pick, and they like Nets fans just offered that for everything.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see what the Knicks would actually attach. If Hartenstein, Grimes, and one of the protected first-round picks in 2023 got you there, I don't mind that.
Okay.
Hartenstein started playing a lot more since Mitchell Robinson got hurt. Before that,
he could contribute to Tom's rotation.
Yeah, I just he like right now he looks too valuable to them, but he had fallen behind Jericho Sims in the rotation not long ago. So that's an interesting one to me. There's also bigger frameworks there where if you were willing to eat Fournier's bad money, maybe you could get extra of those picks. But I don't know. Everyone seems to think the Knicks are just like offering those 3 protected firsts for like whatever.
Yeah.
And like, okay, they're not valuable.
Yeah.
But they're not like home run chips. But I think I'm still a little iffy on what Gary's next price tag is going to be.
Okay.
So I might be a little more willing to take back a protected pick in a deal for him. And then like Grimes and Hartenstein in that scenario. Both of those guys could be bench guys for you. Yeah.
I doubt the Knicks move Grimes for this kind of thing.
I don't think so either, but it's the Knicks.
Yeah, you're right. I love every deal Masai has done with the New York Knicks. All right. Lastly here, before we go, because look, the column's really good. Go through and read it. It goes through a lot of scenarios. I want to ask you, Blake, truthfully, honestly, what's the worst trade proposed to you here, and who is it from?
Oh, they were ones that didn't make if they were like unbelievably bad, I don't put them in because like there's nothing to say other than to like laugh at the person or like be mean, and I've gotten soft in my
you're on the spot right now. Pick one of these that are the worst deals. I'm looking at this JD one. I'm not liking it.
No, the worst one was VanVleet.
That's not the worst one,
VanVleet for Ben Simmons straight up.
Oh man, what are we doing? So we're gonna we're gonna be.
That's the worst one from the Raptors' perspective. The worst one, period, was VanVleet for Tyrese Halliburton straight up. Like that like raw value. That was the worst one. Right. But the worst one for the Raptors was just like, hey, eat 2 more years of maybe the worst salary in basketball for your recent All-Star point guard.
Yeah. No, that one doesn't make sense.
The Simmons rehab Simmons career in Toronto is like kind of funny to me, given like he's 6'9" and defends and can't shoot and stuff.
Why is that our role as a team?
yeah,
like our role as a team shouldn't be to like take in like old prospects and maybe shine them up. And I don't even mind if it's like, oh, we've taken Stanley Johnson, a former lottery pick. We signed it in for a very low amount of money and we're trying to see what we have there.
No,
that's
he's got
different than
2 more years left at the Supermax.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm sorry, Brooklyn. You can enjoy that. But anyway, we're running out of time. If you want to hear more trade talk, we'll be back on the airways from 2 to 3 p.m. So check us out then. But in the meantime,
and then Thursday with your extended show.
That's right. You and I both pulling extra duty, although I suppose for you that's not that much more. But we're done here today. I've been your host, Willow, and you've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel, airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Thanks once again to Blake Murphy, for producer Derek Brandale, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us with the YouTube stream. And we'll be back to, trade away the Raptors tomorrow.